There's no one coming to rescue you. My mom not having to work and being a homemaker versus now coming to the United States, she ended up being like a housekeeper at a hotel. Even if my body's aching and whatnot, I worked 3 jobs, so I was able to pay for my tuition.
Wow, that's a lot of jobs.
Oh yeah. There's not a lot of guarantees in life. One thing for sure is death.
Death and taxes.
We don't realize we're always chasing, right? We're chasing papers, we're chasing our goals, we're chasing our dreams. You never know when it's our turn. He said, Brian, there's no secret to success. You got to work your ass off. And he said this 20 times during our conversation.
Most people think immigrants succeed because we worked harder. That's wrong. We succeed because we learned to leverage faster than everyone else. Let me show you how using one story. This is Brian. His parents didn't come to America because they had nothing. They came even though they had everything. A home, a construction business, stability. They chose uncertainty for their kids' future. That decision rewired how Brian thinks about risk. When they arrived, his mom became a hotel housekeeper. His dad lost everything on a bad deal before he could even get his footing. So Brian did what immigrants do. 3 jobs, paid his own tuition, no safety net. That's survival mode. But survival doesn't create wealth. Then 2008 hit. 4 properties wiped out, back to renting. Most people would have quit here. Brian didn't. He stopped chasing income and started setting ownership. Today, he owns 12 doors and counting. Not because he got lucky, but because he moved from earned income to own income. No one came to his rescue. And that's the point. You weren't meant to be rescued. You were meant to rise. This is the first of the family. Let's dive in.
Brian, before the investment in all the properties you have, before being the #1 purchase producer for Bank of America, before winning the Chairman's Club, let's take it back to the beginning. You have a very interesting immigrant story that is probably unique to other people, because when your family immigrated to the United States, they didn't have to. So can you give us a little bit of background of how your family was like back in Korea?
Yeah, back in the early 80s, like everybody wanted to come to the United States. It was a great opportunity. This is when Korea was still like recovering, building after the war, right? And so we had an opportunity to go to the United States. And even though we had that opportunity, my father was in the construction and home building business. And so we were doing great, right? He would build a home, he would sell it, he would build another one and so forth. And my brother-in-law was also a part of that. He was a general contractor. And when this opportunity came about, it was like everyone was envious because they all wanted to come to the United States. But for us, it was just a matter of should we go or not go? But because of the opportunity that presented itself and my parents wanted a better life for me and my siblings, they decided to leave everything behind and say, you know what, we're going to move to the United States. Super thankful to my parents, for the sacrifice and taking the risk. My mom having not having to work and being a homemaker versus now coming to the United States, not speaking English. And then the only thing that she really knew how to do was clean the house. So she ended up being like a housekeeper at a hotel.
So when you came from Korea, you guys went to Hawaii?
Yes.
Which island?
Oahu.
Oahu.
Yes.
And I know that your father, when he started, he bought a business from another Korean person.
Yes.
And that didn't turn out really quite amazing.
Yes. So when we first immigrated back in 1981, there was a tourist market called International Market. Now, if you've been to Waikiki, International Market still exists. They actually got rid of a lot of the small kiosks that they had. And during that time, it was a very successful business. However, my father, not knowing too much, met this person. I don't know the details of how he knows that person, but he ended up selling the business for a good price. And after he purchased it, it ended up being not so good business. And then, a few months later, he ended up closing that business and then finding a job, working at the hotel and so forth.
And I know you were really young, but did you kind of feel a sense of like your parents maybe second guessing if they should have moved given the lifestyle they had back in Korea versus what they had to start doing? I know your mom was working in the hotel and your dad as well. Did you hear or feel that sense?
I personally didn't see that or hear that, but I'm sure, as someone that left everything behind to come here where they own their own business, they own their own home, was it worth it to come here? And then everybody has that story, right? Like right now, there's not a lot of people I think now that wants to come. The United States is still the country of opportunity. Don't get me wrong. It's the best country to be in. I'm a US citizen, by the way, just for the record. So no one's knocking on our door. But on a serious note, I would say that because all the Korean immigrants, they had their story, their struggle. I know like Japanese, maybe Chinese, many generations came before, but even the Koreans also had their challenge. And so where we are as a country, if you look at how expensive it is in Korea right now, people aren't looking to move unless they really, really absolutely have to.
So you went to school in Hawaii, you graduated, and then your first job was with United Airlines.
Yes, besides waiting, I had 3 jobs. I waited tables, I washed dishes, I installed car stereo, and that's all family business.
Yes.
But my first job out of college was working for United Airlines.
But that was in customer service, correct?
Correct.
And I think you had to move to the mainland at some point, or you chose to move?
I chose to move because the opportunity. So in Hawaii, everything's very senior, and people are either you get fired or you retire or you roll over, you know? So I'm not waiting for people to roll over. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take destiny into my own hands. And so Chicago, the hub, right? It's the most busiest airport.
Yes.
And then it's Denver, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, and Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you chose to go to the place that you know will be the most chaotic and the workload will be.
And have a good chance of getting that job too, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I think I was like number 77 among the supervisors. So there's that many operation supervisors
Wow.
there. Every 15 minutes, a United Airlines planes would be taken
Oh,
off.
because Chicago is their hub, right? Is
Yeah, and the headquarters there too. But
Yeah.
O'Hare itself is just like United, you know? Yeah,
Okay.
Concourse B and C.
So from working at United Airlines, how did you shift to doing real estate?
Yes. So 9/11 happened.
Mhm.
And after that happened, I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. So I drove Chicago to Seattle on the northern route. This is when MapQuest.com was the only thing available. You might not have
So
been
you-
born yet,
So you drove.
including the cameraman.
So you drove actually like from Chicago to Seattle. How
to
long?
Seattle to the northern route. And so it took literally 3 days
Oh.
and driving like 12 hours a day.
Wow.
And it was just, yeah. So I stopped in St. Clouds, Minnesota, and I stopped at Butte, Montana. Then I ended up getting into Washington State, but didn't realize Seattle's at the other end. So I'm like, I'm almost there, but it's like another, 5-6 hours to get there. I'm like, oh,
What
great.
was the reason to drive?
I didn't know any better. In hindsight, you know what? It was probably because I had to take my stuff with me. I was moving. I sold my furniture and I had my car. And so I just didn't think twice. I was 27, 28 at the time. And so when that happened, I'm like, you know what? I need a change. 9/11 happened. I don't know what it's going to do for the airline. I know it's going to change everything. And we were actually the first to get trained on security. So if you want to say, we as the managers learned about what you see today as TSA. So we did that in the beginning. Also had a chance to meet with the mayor of Chicago, Mayor Richard Daley. So that was really cool. But that's how it all started for me.
Okay, so you moved to Seattle and then you got directly into the mortgage business, or?
No, I moved to Seattle because I had a friend that was welcoming, and he said, after what happened, he said, why don't you move in with us? Little did I know he was a newlywed. And so I moved in. We signed he moved from 1 bedroom to 2 bedroom. And then we signed a 6 months contract. And so let's just say that I used my flight benefits a lot. I wasn't there very much. I prepaid the rent. And so, I was just enjoying my flight benefits. And that's how I ended up meeting my wife.
So you met your wife and then you guys decided to move to LA.
Yes, I gave her a choice between Chicago, Seattle, and Southern California.
Mhm.
And so upon, consideration, she ended up choosing Orange County, La Palma, California.
Yeah.
I was hoping for Seattle or Chicago, then Southern California. But I'm so glad. I mean, there's no better place, I think, living here for over 20, now close to 24 years, 23 years. There's no place like Southern California.
So now you're in Southern California. That's when you started working in the mortgage industry, or?
Yes. And so after I moved to Southern California and working for corporate America, I said, I'm going to give entrepreneurship a chance. So wife and I, we started up a restaurant.
Mhm.
So a small Hawaiian takeout, barbecue teriyaki. You see like L&L Hawaiian barbecue, Maui Rose, that type of business. We started doing that. And little did I know my wife was pregnant. I don't think she knew either. So then we're just working. We were, delivering food. We were passing out flyers. We did that for a few months. After a few months, I did notice that she was pregnant. So that's another story of its own, because it has to do with our healthcare and how, in our case, we weren't working for corporate America. We didn't have health benefits.
Yeah.
I really needed help, but our social services at the time, the way policies were written, that because my wife was sponsored, she was sponsored for her green card here. And I wasn't the sponsor because remember, I lost my job.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine who's an engineer at Raytheon sponsored us because he heard the story and he just, he was compelled to help us.
Yeah.
And so but then for social services, if you're being sponsored, you cannot receive medical benefit. Did you know that? Yeah.
No.
So I kind of walked in and I pleaded my case. I paid my taxes since I was 16 and I could not get medical coverage for me and my spouse. So I thought that was, but I strongly believe, like my religion, I'm Christian. I strongly believe that God sends you the right person at the right time. And so when everything seemed very difficult and hopeless, and my wife was almost getting into close to 5 months pregnancy, entering into, because you can see it, we couldn't see a specialist. And at that time, there's a social worker at another office that heard our story and she was able to get us coverage. And so our first child, Christina An, who's also a UCLA grad, who's going to be an attorney, she took the LSAT. She is born in LA County. She's the only child that's born in LA County at the Long Beach Memorial, but it happened that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're so thankful.
So after the restaurant, then you got into the mortgage?
Yes. So the restaurant, we sold the restaurant. This is when 2003, when real estate was starting to boom. So we invested into a new property, and then equity on that home increased, and we ended up buying another home. And then my friend told me, why don't you consider working at the bank? They're looking for someone who's bilingual. If you speak another language, they'll pay you the difference. And so I got a job at Bank of America as a personal banker.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me to support my wife, my child at the time, right after she was born. And it was in Garden Grove.
Okay.
And so I'm super thankful. Now in hindsight, I'm like, did I live off of that? I'm not thinking we do it today, but I really have to thank my friend Tay, who's one of my Hawaii friends, and then also Bank of America for giving me a head start. So I would say in Korean, we say like the first button on your shirt, if you put it on right, like the rest of it just lines up. And I think that's what happened when Bank of America gave me that opportunity.
So that was the first rental you had, like before your Bank of America job?
First home that I purchased was actually a rental. And just to kind of tie it in, my sister was in property management. So luckily her boss was looking for property managers that would, basically the compensation was we'd be able to live for free in the unit. And so the income that we made from Bank of America was enough. Remember I was saying that it wasn't that much, but it was enough for us to get by. And so then when we invested in that first property, it ended up being a rental property. So the rent itself, it covered the mortgage and provided a little income. And then with our property management. So real estate is not something we chose. I felt like it chose us.
Yeah.
In looking back at where you started and then where you are now,
yes,
who did you need to become along the way? What was that mindset shift that changed everything for you?
I think the turning point was later in my career, because in the beginning, it was just like, how do I support my family? How do I pay the bills? How do I get ahead? How do I make payments on my car? How do we eat out, And luckily, every job that I held, I did the best I can with what I have. And I always envisioned myself being on top of the mountain, being number one. And I think it comes with self-belief. And it's not like you're overconfident, but I think everyone should have that confidence and belief in themselves. So when people ask, like, who's the best salesperson, I always say it's me, because I believe that.
Yeah.
Who is the best at what you do? I always believe that it's me. And if there's anything that I could give to maybe future generations, is that you have to believe in yourself. It all starts with your personal belief and your mindset. There's no one coming to rescue you. I learned this since I was 16 because I had a disappointing moment when I was 16. I saved $2,500 to buy a car. Okay. At 16, my father took me to a dealership, and it was at a Honda dealership. So when I went to a Honda dealership and we were looking around, my dad said, you know what, I'll match your 2,500 so you can have 5,000. What my dad was trying to teach me was buy within your means, right? Buy what you can afford. But I always, from when I was young, and I'm the youngest of 4, I always knew what I wanted in life. It was just a matter of how do I get it, you know? And so that day when we went to the car dealership, I looked around, and this is like, I'm dating myself. This is like 1988, 1989. So you guys probably didn't drive those Hondas then. They were a lot smaller and slower, and they were a lot cheaper. But the car I wanted, I think, was about $15,000. And it was brand new. It was a Honda Accord 2-door SCI teal green, blue with beige leather seats. I still remember.
Very specific.
Yes, that was a car in the lot. And my dad's like, oh no, that's too expensive, right? So when they ran up the numbers, I think the payment was like $200-300 a month. Today, it's like a no-brainer. Of course, I take it. But back then, it's like, what my dad was trying to show me was live within your means. That way, you don't have the stress. You can go about your life. You can focus on your study, you know? And remember, I told you that if I want something, I know what I want. It's just a matter of figuring out how do I get it. So that day, I made a decision, right? It was listen to my dad or listen to me. And I think from 16, I always listened to me. And I never got a chance to have that conversation or told my dad, like, I told you so, or for him to say like that. But I know my dad at one point before he passed away, because Korean culture is not like, great job, son, I love you, I'm proud of you, right? I think that's kind of an Asian culture, which I highly recommend this generation to do that for your children, right? I try to do that with my kids. That's what my dad tried to instill in me, is that like how he grew up. But I think something in me said, you know what, I know what I want. I'm going to do what it takes to get there. And same thing for like school. I wasn't the smartest or the highest GPA or whatnot, but I always found a way to like get things done. So I would go to school. I would have 3 jobs. True story. I had 3 jobs to pay for my college tuition. Did I ever share that story with you? No. So remember I said, no one's coming to rescue me.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to make my own decision. And it's like, my dad's going to say one thing, my mom and dad, but I'm going to do it this way. So I always did it my way. And so my way was, even if my body's aching, whatnot, I worked 3 jobs. And back then, University of Hawaii wasn't that expensive. So I was able to pay for my tuition.
Wow. 3 jobs.
On my own.
That's a lot of jobs.
Oh yeah. Hence a lot of friends.
So you ended up getting your car?
Of course. And we got a car club. We went cruising on Fridays and Saturdays and all that. So I had my share of fun, but I also took care of school. And then I made some money.
That's really interesting. I think like the characteristic of a lot of the people who come on is like they figure out a way. And they don't know, like, this is their goal. They don't know exactly the path quite yet.
Yes.
But then, like, because you believe in yourself,
right?
Like that's figure outable.
Yes.
It's gonna create it. Your brain will somehow imagine or create whatever necessary path to get there.
It's like you manifest. They call it like you visualize.
Yeah.
And fast forward today, a lot of things I just like there, as you can imagine, everyone's so busy.
Yeah.
But I just visualize what's going to happen, and it's going to happen this way. And majority of the time, it's kind of like that. So there's no big surprise for me when I get there.
I think you're also very calm.
Yeah.
Like even keel, right? You don't get like too riled up or like too down. Correct? Or
on the inside, probably there's like fireworks, but on the outside, it's like the duck, right? Calm underwater, above water, but underneath they're pedaling really hard.
Yeah,
and
magic.
I've never heard that. That's a really good one.
But that's how life is. And if you look at some of the most successful people, and I used to be starstruck with a lot of people, and I still do. But I remember people like President Obama in his videos, like they're not all that. Like when you sit down with them and you talk to people, they're human, just like you. And once you make that connection, you're like, you know what? I belong here. I can do this. And I think that's where the self-belief comes in, and you say to others that are struggling, or, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Like I can do this, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not that good. You can do this. It's okay to be the average Joe,
That is really powerful. That is actually one of the hardest things that people sometimes can't mentally get over, the idea that like, no, you belong, that this is what you deserve. And so if you don't apologize for wanting better things or wanting nice things or wanting a better life, that you just know that it's part of your destiny, that this is part of, your mission on earth to be able to have access to that abundance.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of things. It's weird. And I'm kind of sharing this. Like every morning that I get up right now, I'm just thankful to be alive. That there's a lot of things that are happening in this world that are ugly, yet like we're fortunate. I think we have to be thankful for that. We have to pray for those people, pray for peace. And at the same time, what can I do to help the situation? So being kind to others. I was very competitive and I still am, like aggressively, passive aggressive, whatever you want to call it, but just simply being nice. Right? Because you can't control what happened on a daily basis, but you can control how you react to the situation. And your reaction actually will help others make the situation positive.
Yeah.
So that's been my focus lately.
That's a really calming kind of way. Yeah. Like if it's basically what you can control. That's really cool. So like
talking about control, actually, here at the Kitti Sisters,
yes,
we love to turn like earned income into own income. Because that's something that you can control.
Okay.
Right? What would you what would be a suggestion that you can give or an advice to people who are on that journey and haven't made it yet?
I would say for people that are on that journey, but they haven't made it yet, I would say surround yourself with people with proven track records, right? I think the best thing to do is latch on to like a mentor. Real estate for me is something that I know and I feel comfortable. There's friends that are there that ask me, hey, invest in, right now they're talking about not Bitcoins, but there's a terminology right now where it's multiple ownership onto a cryptocurrency.
Fractional, something.
Fractional. So there's a lot. I tell myself I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I mentioned to you earlier, I know what I want. And when I know what I want, it's like I'm unstoppable, right? I'm going to do that. But if I don't know enough. Like with 4 kids and all the things I'm responsible for, I can't afford to take that risk. So real estate for me has been a really safe investment. Someone said this once, there's three types of people: employees, employers, and landlords. So when you become a landlord, you're kind of like collecting rent, right? We have abundance of other things, but we already have a set amount of land. Like this earth is already pre-made. So when you become a landlord, I think you have a lot more control. Getting back to your question about what can the younger people do? I think they just need to study up on whatever they feel confident. And if they're not and they want to get into that space, they need to find a mentor that can really help them with a proven track record. Every day, everyone comes to me with a great idea. Do you know that? More so now that I'm the president, they have a great idea. This is how it helped our association, or this is how you can make more money. I hear that all the time. Or 3 out of the 100 calls I get might be like, can you let me borrow some money? So,
oh my God.
Yeah, this is today's market. But on a serious note, I would say be cautious. When you're young, I think, especially when you're young, you could go aggressive. But I'm still very old school. So even when I had those opportunities, in hindsight, some things I wish I did. Maybe I could have owned my own company in that field and taken off, but I was too afraid to. With my children, my wife, like too much to gamble.
Yeah.
My wife is not working, right? So then all of us would collapse if I didn't make it. That kind of pressure.
Yeah.
So I think whatever the goal that people have, it's their own, and make sure that they feel comfortable with their money. So no matter how smart or how people say it's foolproof to make that investment, at the end of the day, buyer beware, right? It's your money that you're investing.
So your first investment was in your first rental property.
Correct.
So, and now you have several. What was the plan with that? Like, how, did you say, hey, I'm going to refi this first one, go buy another one? Or like, what was the process, like strategy to continue to buy more? Yeah.
So my story actually, a part that's missing is I kind of fell from grace once, because when the property was values were taking off, equity was increasing. I pulled that equity I bought. And I remember this is when stated income loans are readily available, minimum down payment. We're talking about like 5% down, no money down.
Yeah.
So right prior to 2008, 2009, I think I ended up, pulling equity and bought 4 properties. When the market turned, like the last person holding the bag, my 4 properties all went to foreclosure. So I went through this cycle of losing 4 homes. And then wife and I and the kids, we were renting. But one thing that I, thought about was, even in this situation, what can I do? What's the silver lining? And everybody was like, you know what? Even though we have a program that someone could buy a home. So there was all these demand. I'm like, how are these people able to buy a home after they foreclose? I paid attention. And so when our time came in 2012, now we've rented for a few years, went to look for some properties. We couldn't afford it. And remember I told you at the right time, God sends you the right person at the right time. When I was giving up, that's when I feel like someone just shows up. It's weird. And it happens all the time. So we were renting a single story home that belonged to my father-in-law's friend. And it was like $2,000. Rent probably in that property should have been over $3,000. So we got a good deal. Eventually, he was looking to sell the house, so we had to move out. So at that point, I told my wife, I said, why don't we go look for a house? I had a customer, this is when I was working at the bank. I had a customer who was a general contractor. Imagine if you're a general contractor in your house, how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
He laid the tiles himself. It had a medieval, wooden heavy door with his initials. And then he had a view of Catalina Island from his back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the driveway could fit like 12 cars. That's how long the driveway was. And so it was like a perfect house. What I mean by that was I always thought my mom would live with us, right? We talk about my mom. And so this house was pre-planned to have a swimming pool and a in-laws quarter in the back. He had it already pre-wired, pre-approved with the city.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I have a price tag. I'm like, oh, maybe he'll let it go for like under $1 million, like 900,000. I go there, we talk and blah, blah, blah. It was more than $1 million. So I couldn't afford it. The best part of that house was he had centralized vacuum. You know what that is?
Yeah, like you just plug into a wall and there's a
you
hose.
take a hose and you go to every room and there's vacuum there.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
So nice.
Yeah. So he had that too. And I'm like, I have to buy this house.
You know what you want.
Thank you. But I think the reason I also got this far is because I listened to my wife, right? Like when your wife gives you an advice, we have a great relation in the fact that when she gives me advice, and she doesn't say that all the time, I listen, right? I tend to listen. So with the property, it was just like, okay, we can't, afford this. So we're driving back and we have to go over this hill. When I'm passing that house, it was originally available to us from the realtor because I have contact. And so my wife initially rejected this house because she's like, I don't like this house, or I don't know. She wasn't fond to it.
Yeah.
And later on, she told me that it's because it was too expensive too.
Oh.
But she was hoping something we could afford. So what happens? On our way back home, after feeling deflated that we couldn't afford the home, I called a realtor and he says, oh, it just fell out of escrow like 3 weeks ago. And it's because they wanted a little bit more money for their grand piano and their chandeliers that they put in. True story. So the buyer of that home put in a lot of money into that house. And so he bought it at the top of the market. When he was losing that home to foreclosure, he's trying to get anything he can. That house was offered at $775. It was valued at about 1.2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But, again, this foreclosure would take who knows how long. After I made that phone call, and that gentleman told me and said it fell out of escrow, I think the price that they accepted was $825. This is end of 2012. This is when home prices are starting to creep back up, right? The realtor gave us the opportunity, and it's a short sale, so we don't know when it's going to close. We signed the offer at $825. That's what it was accepted at. Then we realized this person has like 5 liens on the house.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So every time we would clear a lien, there'd be another one. So it took 10 and a half months of going back and forth. Now the seller's already out of the country. They gave up. They're out of the country. And my wife may hear it now, but I didn't tell her about the extra for the chandelier of the piano. So I paid it. Like if you know the art of negotiation, you know the value. We're walking into $200,000 equity, but you don't want to pay $5,000.
Yeah.
Let me just pay the $5,000.
Yeah.
So it took that long, even to the very last day. Like I thought it wouldn't happen, but if anything in life is meant for you, or anyone is meant for you to be with, it's going to happen. And nothing will stop it from happening. And that's how we ended up buying the house. And we've been there since 2013.
Wow. After that, that's when you start buying more rental properties?
Yes. So the first investment property, as you mentioned, is the story's kind of long, so I'll make it really short. This agent, right, when I was part of Chase Mortgage at the time, I trained some newer agents on finance, but also sales and marketing. So we became friends, and then she had a listing, and it was in Apple Valley. I'm like, among all places, I'm like, why do you have a listing in Apple Valley? So I called her, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, it's my cousin's place. And because I have a license, I have the listing. I'm like, great. I said, tell me more. And she said that's their first investment property. And they're selling it 1031 now to buy a 12 unit that they just found.
Oh, wow.
So this was like, I'm like one cycle behind the cousin. So I'm like, okay, at the time they wanted $399, $399,000, 4 unit.
Wow.
You can't get that now, right? Of course.
Oh my God.
Back then it was like, oh my God, it seems expensive. Should we do this? My wife and I are like stressing out. Should we do this?
Yeah.
And then we ended up buying it. I think we bought it for $400,000, right? $400,000. So remember I said if it's meant to be, because we only increased it like 1,000 and we got the properties. Right? It was meant to be. So from that property, we were able to leverage equity, and then we ended up buying another property. And all these properties actually came to me, just like this one. At the right time, God sends you the right person. So same thing with Han in Alabama. Yeah. I bought a house in Alabama. I'm like,
have you been to the house?
I've been there once. So the funny story is, and this is during COVID, I'm like, okay, I had to go to Florida like for a funeral, and then it's close enough. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to Alabama. And she's like, okay, I'm going to pick you up. And she like came with her truck. She picked me up. And then we went to go look at the property, and right then and there I signed. I made a decision based on what I saw, my belief and my trust, and what Han told me. And she lives in that town. Why not? So it's been a positive cash flow for me right now, and the equity's been going up. So it's just one after another. Same thing for my mom's property that I bought her. It's just, like things happen. It was difficult for her. And when you hear your mom is having a hard time, as a child, like you want to give everything, Sometimes when you're married, you have to check with your wife, but she knew where my heart and intent was. So I did that. I broke the piggy bank, my savings, my 401 that corporate America, thank you corporate America, gave, and I spent it all. And I put my mom in there. So that's one thing led to another. I think now we're at 12 doors. Yeah. Some of them are doing good as far as cash flow and equity. They're all increasing in equity. The ones that I live in, the ones that I use for vacation home. And I know there's a lot of people around my circle like, oh, you should Airbnb it. You'll make more money. I'm not there yet, and I don't need to. So sometimes I'm very thankful that I'm able to use that to, enjoy with my family or my close friends or colleagues. Yeah, that's what I do.
And let's take a look at 5 years from now. What do you see yourself doing and or stop chasing?
So I have a goal. It's still my goal. And, I think multi-unit apartment complexes where I would like to be, to own maybe 230 units. Mentioned earlier that I manage the property, right? Yes. And so through that experience, I was able to, clean up and improve the property, raise the rent, provide more cash flow for the owner. And I'm like, I think I could do this in the future, right? And that's what kind of driven me. Obviously, the price right now is very hard to reach. But I'm hoping in the future that I could own maybe 230 units here in Southern California. That would be my simple retirement plan.
So do you think anyone can be an investor?
Anyone can. Okay, so the owner of the company who gave me the job, his name is Tim. And this is what he said. He said he became a realtor. He was an engineer for Edison in the 80s, making six-figure Taiwanese gentleman. And he said his story was he became a realtor and ended up managing over 30 properties for his friends, because he said everybody has some money to invest. It may not be $1 million, it may not be hundreds of thousands, but everybody has some money to invest. So I always remember that. I think if the next generation, if you're looking to invest, there's opportunity for investment. So like my Alabama new home was $268,000. I was lucky to land like 2.99 interest rate during that time, right? So it's timing. I think opportunity comes when you prepare yourself and then you're open to it. Same thing with like meeting people. I'm not sure if you're both married or not married, but people out there that are single, if you're open heart, open-minded, then the right person also comes to you. Yes.
That's pretty amazing.
So you talk a lot about generational wealth.
Yes.
So in your perspective, do you think there's a real difference between families who get rich once and families who stay wealthy?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good question. I actually think through that a lot now. I met somebody that helped me to do my financial planning a little bit. And he shared information about how generational wealth, including like the Waltons, Walmart, and so forth, how they keep their wealth is the way they plan their generational wealth to be managed, including having trust and so forth. And I won't go into that piece, but in order for multi-generation of wealth to exist, I think it has to be managed correctly. In my opinion, like for my kids, because I didn't receive a master's degree or PhD, I really kind of encourage my kids to get the education so they may make the right decision. At the end, whatever decision they make, I won't be here, right, when they're spending our money. However, I think by having the education background, that I feel like they'll make the right choices. I think that has a lot to do with it too. And the education doesn't necessarily have to be in the form of books and, degrees. It could also mean like them knowing how to manage their wealth.
So last question, when you think about first of the family, what do you want to be remembered for?
It almost sounds like my funeral question, So I think ahead. Remember I told you I think ahead. First of the family, that I did the best with what I can. I got lucky along the way. I surrounded myself with the right people. And I think the older I got, right? I used to be yes man. You ever watch the movie from Jim Carrey, Yes Man?
Yes.
So you say yes to everything. So these days I say no a lot, so I'm a no man. But I think it's important. Your time is the most valuable asset that you have, and you have to use that wisely. So to my kids, anybody else, first in the family, I did it. I did what I did because I knew my why was to provide for my family, and I wanted them to have a better life than I did. And along the way, I got lucky. And as a parent or the first in the family, I want them to go further. Take what I got that I gave to you and go further. So then you can also pay it forward and help others too, because there's not a lot of guarantees in life. One thing for sure is death. Sorry to sound so
Death
grim.
and taxes.
Yeah. Well, if you live in the United States, yes. But death and taxes, but that's for sure. So what I've been thinking lately is anything of value, and I preach this to people, anything of value you have to use, you have to share, and you have to give away. So all those Hermes bags and Chanel bags, make sure you use them all. But more importantly, I think that's what it is. We don't realize we're always chasing, right? We're chasing papers, we're chasing our goals, we're chasing our dreams. You never know when it's our turn. And, I'm going to be going to another funeral pretty soon. But every time I attend, that's what I realize is what are we doing all this for? If it's not for making sure that, our loved ones are taken care of when we're gone.
That's a really good answer. Thank you for that.
No problem.
I feel like your journey is one of like relationships that you built along the way, and somehow, and I think we feel this way too, because in our lives, like in the most dire needed situations, someone just appears at the right time for some reason. It always happens. And it's like, if you're open to receiving that kind of gift, then that's when everyone probably have access to those gifts. They just have to be receptive and open to actually receiving it.
I think it's really when you surrender. The word is like when you surrender yourself and say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Then what happens? Like, it's like someone, right? Like picks you up and carries you, your weight, your pain. And so, again, I'm not here to talk about politics, religion, or football teams. Go Rams. But because in Aria, there's a lot of diehard fans, right? Can I tell you this? I think we're probably out of time, but in San Francisco, I go and install a lot of chapters, right? Yeah. San Francisco Peninsula is where the founders are.
Oh, okay.
So Alan Okamoto, John Wong.
Okay, they're from there.
The national presidents are there. They just did their 15-year anniversary. So when I go up and I speak, usually I don't get too nervous. But when I went up there, it was nerve-wracking, right? Because you got all these people. And then on top of that, no one was listening because they were having such a good time. Until you talk a little smack about their football team. And then what happened?
Oh.
The founders are booing me, literally, right? So I was trying to tell them how lucky they are and how successful they are because it's the women in their life, because their wives were in the audience. But I couldn't get to it because they're booing me so loud. So anyways, a little tidbit about football and how obsessed people are with their home team. So
Go Rams.
yeah. People weren't talking to me for like a day or two because it was so painful. And then I had a chapter president from Seattle. Remember Seattle played 49ers?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the
They just played.
Yeah. So I mean, they weren't talking to each other. So anybody that's playing the Seahawks, that's who they're rooting for.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but I feel very fortunate, and one thing I just want to mention to like the next generation is, and someone who retired as a CEO that goes to my church. Okay, he grew up in East LA with like nothing. He retired with multi-digit millions when he sold his company. And this is what he said when I interviewed him. Just like this, I asked him, how did you do it?
Mhm.
He said, Brian, there's no secret to success. You got to work your ass off. And he said this 20 times during our conversation. So to the next generation, if you believe in something and you're passionate, you have to go after it. There's no one coming to rescue you. And yes, you do have to work your ass off. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope I answered all your questions.
That's really amazing.
Please tune into the Kitti Sisters and make sure they get 20 likes. I mean, 20 million likes.
20 likes. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, guys.